cool thing. In the last episode I mentioned how I'm one of those lucky few who grew up in a transitional age of formats, using both digital and analog. I find myself flip-flopping between the two in some ways. I'm one of the only people I know who still has VHS tapes, let alone a VCR. Gotta watch Star Wars the right way. I love looking back on old photographs. My family and I had this habit of getting disposable cameras for just about any trip we took. But those photos, those memories, were anything but disposable. My brother Dwayne had some sort of fascination with his own face. This is something that hasn't changed much in over 15 years. We'd always get the negatives back with the photo prints. Most people I knew would usually just throw these things away because they don't really have any way of looking at them, but we always kept them for some reason. And since I started really getting into photography a few years ago, my great uncle Mick passed down his collection of cameras. Most of my film camera collection came from him, and I really do love them. This one in particular belonged to my great uncle Jim. I never knew Jim, but holding his camera in my hands makes me feel like I know him a little bit better. The Agfa Isolette was made from 1950 to 1952. It has this little trap door that lets the lens fold back inside it. I feel like a cowboy when I shoot on this thing. You have to put a lot more effort into your settings to get a good image out of this thing, since you don't really know what you're shooting because there's no mirror inside it. You just kind of have to guess whether or not something's in focus. I'd never heard of Alba before or since getting this camera. This was the first camera that was truly mine. I must have been about 10. This thing is why I'm so obsessed with keeping every photo and video I have now, since most of the videos I took on this thing have been lost to time on hard drives in a landfill somewhere, never to be seen again. The Kodak Duoflex is another camera my uncle passed down to me. It's from the late 40s, early 50s. It uses a very old-fashioned simple shutter system, very similar to some of the first cameras ever made. It takes 620 film, which they don't officially make anymore. But you can get it from places like B&H Photo, it's just crazy expensive. Now, if it's possible to feel sorry for a camera, I'm sure this one deserves it the most. This Sony camera I had for most of my early teens was my little workhorse. And just like the Alba, I lost the majority of photos and videos I took on this thing. But I do still have a lot of them. My teenage self was stupid and deleted things just because I thought they were cringy. I didn't truly appreciate those memories at the time. The Cine Kodak Model K. I found this thing in a thrift shop for about 20 quid. The letter's all petrified and falling apart. I'm torn whether or not I want to get it restored or keep it as it is. This thing's been knocking around since World War II and is somehow in better condition than the last camera. I can only imagine the things that have been captured on this throughout the ages. It takes 16mm film. I'd like to potentially make a short film on this someday, because I'm a pretentious bastard. Canon EOS M3 and M50. These were my introduction to mirrorless DSLR type cameras. I'd never had the option to swap out lenses. I'm still building that collection. I got these little adapters so I could put any EF and EFS lenses onto the M50, since there's more options on that line. I shot a majority of my movies on these. This Polaroid I found in the loft of our cabin a few years ago. The handle broke off it, so I improvised with a piece of scrap leather that I had lying around. I shoot on this one quite a lot, especially when I have friends over. There's something nice about having this single moment in time captured and turned into something physical in a minute or two. And then there's my Canon 35mm cameras, the AE1 and the A1. The AE1 has automatic shutter, which is cool and all, but for most conditions it just goes into bulb mode. First time I tried to wind back the film on the AE1, I forgot to press this button at the bottom of the camera. It releases the spool and lets you wind it back. And I broke the knob clean off. It still works, but I never forgot to press that button ever again. The AE1 was a Christmas present from Ross. The guy he bought it off of forgot to tell him that the battery door was broken. It won't stay closed on its own. That doesn't really matter because it doesn't really affect how the camera works. I just shut it over with a piece of gaff tape. Works like a charm. Then the EOS R, my most recent camera. I feel like in this age where everyone has a camera, we take photographs and videos for granted. Apps like Snapchat and Instagram have made it so these moments disappear quite quickly. The less precious, people tend to take an abundance of photos and let them get discarded or deleted or forgotten. I'm a hoarder in a lot of aspects of my life, and seeing a lot of these memories from my early teens go to waste made me a bit of a story hoarder. I guess if I want you to take anything from this, is to not necessarily see that old photo of yourself as something embarrassing or disposable. It's a glimpse into the past, to the person that you used to be, the way that the world used to be. Once that's gone, it's gone. We live in an age where there's an abundance of sharing, but not necessarily keeping anything. So don't delete it. You'll want to look back on it someday.